Hey Kyle, just woke up and watched your video. Um, I guess right off the bat, I would completely agree that we can learn a lot about consciousness by adopting a multidisciplinary or even transdisciplinary approach and combining the insights of all these different fields. Um, whether it's cognitive science, neuroscience, psychology, um, artificial intelligence, philosophy. Um, I would even say evolutionary biology should be in there too, where we are dealing with organisms um, that have evolved. But I guess I think part of the reason that science has left consciousness on the sidelines, as far as its investigations into the natural world, is because to investigate consciousness, it would have to transform itself, and it hasn't been open to doing that. Um, and I suspect that if science pursues consciousness through these various fields that I mentioned, and that you mentioned, it will transform itself. I do have faith in the scientific method, but I don't think it will remain what it has been in the past as it investigates consciousness. And you mentioned Descartes at the end, and that his attempt to account for first-person experience was inherently flawed. And I'll agree with you there. But the modern scientific attitude is based on Descartes' thought experiment. Sure, they kind of lopped off the first-person side of it, but they completely appropriated the third-person aspect of Descartes' method, that nature is mechanical, that you don't have to worry about your subjective human experience impacting your measurement of it because they're separate. Um, and that attitude that the scientists took towards their work that Descartes first laid out almost 400 years ago hasn't changed. And I think it is flawed. And I'll agree with you there. And what we really need to do is understand how to better bridge this gap between first and third person perspectives. And I think the at least a clear direction to move in is to explore second person consciousness, second person perspectives, because really maybe that's the ground of all this. Maybe that's where our personal, subjective, private experience and our public, objective experience arises from originally, and is constantly going back to figure out what to jump back into those first and third person perspectives as. Um, and as you said, it's definitely difficult um, to have science a science of first person states of consciousness because they are so subjective and they seem so private. But I would argue that they're not that private. Um, and at the same time, I would argue that third person investigations into the objective state of the world itself are no less problematic. I mean, look at quantum physics. Regardless of the fact that we have the highest technology, the most intricate and well-designed experiments, um, almost every physicist has a different interpretation of what the data is that they're getting back from these experiments, what it means. Um, and so, you see that the subjective interpretation of the individual consciousness goes a long way in categorizing and interpreting what the data, the third person objective data is. So something that seems completely public and out in the open is also resting in that peer review process, that intersubjective exchange about what was seen. Um, and I think we can do just as well uh, studying first person states of consciousness, because as I said, the meeting point is the second person, the peer review. That's where it all comes together. Um, and it just seems to me that studying consciousness, you can't do it without altering it, without transforming it, without transforming how you experience yourself. And, the measurement problem in quantum physics is kind of pointing in this direction. It seems the further we go out in the objective third-person direction, studying the material world, the more it seems to almost start looping back around to the first person, in the sense that the act of observation itself makes it so that we can never know what the world was prior to our having observed it. But exploring consciousness is transformational, and not just on a technological level that it transforms society, like most science does, but and even most science has been transforming our sense of ourselves. I mean, TV, the internet, these technologies have completely changed how human beings experience themselves and their society. But when science really begins, which it is doing now, to focus in on just what the hell consciousness really amounts to, how it fits into the natural scheme and natural order, my feeling is that it's going to transform even more than it has thus far. Each of our personal states of consciousness, our understanding of who we are. And my feeling is that, there's a lot of wisdom, pre-scientific wisdom in our human tradition, that can help science in this respect. Because in many ways, while science explored an aspect of reality that hadn't been explored before, it's coming back around now to studying consciousness, which certainly has been explored, not with the exact methods of science, but something similar. And, I'm thinking of mostly, ancient spiritual traditions, shamanic traditions where consciousness is altered using plant substances, various plant substances. There's a body of great knowledge contained in all those traditions, and science could learn something from them. It doesn't have to start from scratch, is what I'm saying. So it's so interdisciplinary, the study of consciousness, that it also includes fields outside of science, or what have traditionally been outside of science, like, a world religions scholar or something. And certainly psychedelic research has got to be in there. But I guess I'll finish up there, and let me know what you think. And I'm definitely enjoying this exploration with you, so thanks.